At the start of our story, we see an old man coughing and saying, "I am an earthling from a civilized society. I came from a civilized society." Just then, a little girl enters his house with some food in her hand. Seeing the old man like that, she says, "Mr. So, are you okay? My mother sent this for you." Here, we learn that this old man's name is So. He thanks the little girl. Then, while placing the food on the ground, little girl replies, "Not a problem. Please get well soon and make some more soap." Saying that, she leaves the house and walks back toward her home in a snowstorm. This old CO is an earthling, an inhabitant of a civilized world. It's been 50 years since he fell into this cursed world. They were on their way to a workshop with Director Kim and other company employees when they were suddenly swept away in a landslide. When they came to their senses, they found themselves in a strange world. A fox as big as a house with 3 tails, a large red-scaled snake with 2 heads, and beings wielding swords flying through the sky. It was a world like the martial arts novels he occasionally read. Although it was a strange world, most of his colleagues probably did quite well, except for him. Among the 7 people who fell into the martial world that day, within just 3 days of their arrival, destinies began to unfold. The sage-like beings who descended from above were in awe of his co-workers' mythical talents and took each one of them into the sky. Only he and Director Kim remained in this world. To be honest, they had hopes that something special would happen to them too, but neither Director Kim nor he had any special abilities. Diamam found itself in his podum, and Diamam took to his people and led them to the spot of them. Without knowing much about this world, all they could do was manual labor. For 6 months, the two worked menial jobs in a busy marketplace, earning their meals. Until one day, Director Kim could take it no longer. He told CO that he couldn't live like this anymore and used all his money to buy a third-rate martial arts book sold on the streets. Everyone laughed at him, but within 3 months, he mastered it and became a full-fledged martial artist. He worked for the nation and learned more and more advanced martial arts. After he became a powerful warrior, Director Kim left for the Jianghu, leaving Seo behind. Seo just hoped that something special could happen to him as well, but until the end, nothing happened to him at all. After 50 years, he is now just an old man dying from a common cold. He coughs blood, repeating that he is from Earth. He has tried his hardest to live. He learned the language, learned to read and write, worked as a laborer to make a living, bought a small plot of land, and built his own house. He started making some decent money when he began making soap using lye. In this medieval time, soap was essentially a new concept. However, even that ended after some thieves stole the method of making his soap and started producing their own. These thugs booted So out of the market. Now he is waiting for his death. Having been rejected by this world, a frustrated So asks the world, "What do you want from me? Even though I tried my hardest, what must I do?" He starts crying, asking why he couldn't have been selected even if he was not special, and why he has to continue losing everything. Now CO no longer has the energy to keep his eyes open. As his eyes start to close, he hopes that if he just had a bit more power, maybe, just maybe, he might have had more opportunities. Lying on his bed, sick with a cold, CO's life ends. That was how he died, and how, with a bright light, he opened his eyes again. He slowly looked down at his body. It's not a hand full of wrinkles and lines. It is a young hand, full of vitality and life. He was wearing something clearly different from the clothes of this world, the blue shirt and sweatpants he had worn on Earth. He looked around, trying to grasp the situation. Then he saw Director Kim, Chief O, Section Chief Jun, Deputy Manager Kang, Deputy Manager O, and Manager Kim. So was shocked to see them. Now he finally realized he hadn't come to this world powerless. He had gained the power of regression. This was So's first regression. Director Kim, with half his hair shaved off, looked around and asked, "What's happening? We were just on our way to a workshop." He didn't know where they were, but CO knew. This was the first day they had just landed in this strange world. CO remembered how they ended up here. They were in an SUV going to the workshop when they got caught in a landslide, and then something flashed. It was a 50-year-old memory, so it was a bit hazy, and even CO couldn't remember clearly. While he was thinking this, suddenly someone called from behind, "Hey, Deputy Manager CO!" But CO was still lost in his thoughts, wondering, now that I have regressed, how should I live? Usually, in regression novels, people live well using their future knowledge. But all I know is making soap. Suddenly, the guy from behind grabbed CO's shoulder and shouted, "Manager, Seonyun!" CO snapped out of his daydream at the shout. He looked back and saw it was Section Chief Zeon. CO said, "Sorry," trying to explain that he was a bit startled. But suddenly, with a swish, Section Chief Zeon slapped CO across the face. Everyone present was shocked to see that. Section Chief John shouted, "Deputy Manager CO, you bastard, you dozed off while driving on the mountainside. You almost got us all killed." Seo stood there dazed from the slap. He had forgotten this deputy manager title. It was a title he hadn't heard in so long that he didn't realize Section Chief Jun was referring to him. Section Chief Jun looked at Seo angrily and asked, "Manager Seo, do you want to lose your job the moment we get back?" Hearing that, Seo remembered the face he hadn't seen in a long time. Section Chief John Myung-hoon was a son of a bitch. He was the nephew of John Myung-chol, the executive director of the company Seo worked for. At 32, he had already snagged the section chief position through nepotism. When John Myung-hoon was about to charge at Seo in anger, Chief Oh stood up and stopped him. He told John it was enough, because that landslide wasn't something Deputy Manager Seo could have done anything about. But John shouted again, asking, "Aren't you angry, Chief Oh? This insane jerk was dozing off. That's why we're in this situation." Hearing that, Seo remembered that he definitely had dozed off while driving. But the reason he was dozing off was because John had dumped all his work on Seo the day before the workshop, the work John had been putting off, forcing Seo to stay up all night. Thinking about it again, Seo also remembered that originally the one in charge of driving was John. Originally, he was supposed to drive. Pointing at Seo, John shouted, "This stupid bastard. We're stranded because of him." But Seo was slowly starting to recall his memories from 50 years ago. Back then, Seo was so shocked, he didn't understand what was happening. So, unwittingly, he apologized to John. He even thought it was his own fault. Then he went on to spend the next 50 years just like that, apologizing to people even when a group of bandits trampled over him and took his belongings, when a damned martial artist mocked him, or when a regional official took everything he had in the name of taxes. He kept apologizing, but there was one thing Seo realized after years of holding it in. Sure, he had to keep his temper in front of those he couldn't handle, but not in front of everyone. Seo stood up and, with a straight face, said, "Section Chief John, I know you're mad, but now's not the time to be pointing fingers." Hearing that, John got furious and lunged at him, shouting, "You damn son of a bitch." He punched Seo again, shouting, "Are you asking for a fight?" This punch made Seo realize that he didn't need to kneel before someone he could handle. He turned around and punched John in the face, sending him flying. Seeing that, everyone present was too shocked. They could not believe their eyes. So continued punching John. In his past life, Seo had been beaten up by martial artists countless times. He was beaten up by bandits while gathering herbs in the mountains, by more bandits during years of bad harvest, and even by officials because he couldn't pay his taxes. Now, Seo sat on John, not giving him even a chance to fight back. Seeing this, everyone froze in their place, not knowing what to do. In that world of violence, Seo was able to gain something that these people lacked. He gained violence. If one hits someone in the eyes, their fear is amplified, and after being beaten up like this, only 2 words instinctively leave opponents' mouths: "I'm sorry." Those were the exact words John said when Sue hit him in the eyes. Sue may not have the mythical talents mentioned by those transcendent individuals, or the amazing martial arts that would make him famous in the martial arts world, but now he did have the ability to change fate. Director Kim, Chief Oh, Deputy Manager Kang, Deputy Manager Oh, and Manager Kim all were looking at Sue with fearful eyes. Among them, Director Kim spoke up with a trembling voice, "Deputy Manager Seo, no matter what, how could you beat a fellow colleague to that extent?" Seo didn't argue and immediately accepted it, saying, "Yes, you're right, Director Kim. I just got so angry at the moment. I apologize for startling everyone." Since Seo would never see any of the others again anyway, he bowed neatly to Director Kim and the other employees and apologized, saying that since he was the one driving, he was sorry for not doing more at that time. Director Kim told Seo that sure, Section Chief Jun had been a bit harsh, and Seo couldn't really have done anything about the landslide. Even then, Jun overreacted. He asked Seo to apologize to Jun directly. Knowing he would continue seeing Director Kim, Seo followed his words because Director Kim would become one of the strongest martial artists there once he started learning. If Seo supported him as much as he could in this life, he was sure he would get something out of it too. That meant he needed to get on Director Kim's good side now. Seo turned to Jun and, while offering a helping hand, apologized, saying his reaction was not warranted. Han, whose face was swollen from Seo's beating, looked angry and was about to crush him, but he stopped after seeing Seo look at him with dead eyes and no fear. After everyone calmed down, Director Kim looked toward the forest and suggested, "Why don't we try to get out of these woods and look for a village?" Seo agreed because that was the logical thing to do, but he knew that here, immortals flew wild, trying to secure their immortality, and the only rule that reigned in this land was, "The strong devours the weak." The people of this place, the Miram, fought with swords for wealth and honor. This forest's name was Ascension Path. There was no village, city, or nation anywhere around here. CO suggested to Director Kim, since the sun is going to set soon, why don't we set up a shelter somewhere safe? Director Kim thought CO's suggestion was right, but asked, what about the car? There's quite a lot of things in there that we packed for the workshop. In that car, there were many things they could use, but only CO knew they wouldn't be able to find the car. He also knew they wouldn't believe him, so he decided to just let them look for the car instead of wasting his energy trying to convince them. He suggested that they should split up. Then, one team could look for shelter and the other could look for the car. They would meet back here before it got completely dark. After a few hours, CO started a fire in a cave near the place they first arrived. While eating, a black-haired girl told the others that she didn't get it. We were caught in a landslide while we were in a car, so how did we end up here while the car is gone? Director Kim agreed with the girl, saying he didn't get it either. Everyone was sitting around the fire eating. Pointing at the food, a girl commented, "This tastes like chestnuts." Hearing that, Seo asked her if it was crunchy. He told them he had a lot of it, so they could have as much as they wanted. Hearing that, Director Kim laughed and said, "It's a pretty serious situation, but thanks to Manager Seo, we're having fun." He praised Seo, saying, "I knew you were this dependable even back in the company." While everyone was eating, Seo noticed John sleeping in a corner, refusing to eat anything. Director Kim spoke a little louder so John could hear. "Manager Seo, if I remember correctly, you were tired while driving because you had to work late yesterday." Others agreed with Director Kim. A brown-haired girl told Director Kim, "He's right, their manager is really diligent." A red-haired girl also praised Seo, saying, "It feels like we're camping thanks to this cave manager Seo found." Seo knew they were right, because in his past life, they only found this place after being lost in the woods for hours, but he acted modest and told them he was just lucky. Hearing that, everyone laughed and told Seo he could just take the compliment. Seo also thought that he should enjoy this moment because tonight would be the last time they could laugh like this. The next morning, trembling in fear, Seo offered his greetings to the Lord of the Forest. The Lord of the Forest he was greeting was a huge seven-tailed fox with red glowing eyes. The fox looked at Seo and, with a smile, said, "Human, you have quite a unique scent for a human. Despite having lived thousands of years, I have never smelled humans like you." Hearing the commotion outside, the black-haired girl woke up. She came outside and asked Seo what had happened. But when she saw the huge fox, she got scared and screamed. Hearing her scream, others also woke up and came out of the cave. When they saw the huge fox, they too got scared and screamed. Hearing them, Seo looked back and shouted, telling them to show their manners to the Lord of the Forest and get on their knees. Hearing Seo, the seven-tailed fox said, "Every time I come across you humans, I am reminded how foolish and rude you all are." It told them that it would usually rip off all their limbs, but since one of them seemed to know how to treat him, he would forgive them. With that being said, they must pay the price for being in his territory. If one of them offers him an arm, he will let them stay here. Hearing the fox talk, everyone was already too scared, and after listening to its demands, they became even more terrified. Seo was also very scared because in his past life, everyone who saw this monster screamed in panic, and they all ended up dead, having angered the fox. But Seo was a little relieved to see that the fox appreciated his manners this time, and wasn't ripping off all their limbs like last time. Then, while licking its mouth, the seven-tailed fox asked who would give him their arm. Seo calculated that it was just one person's arm. That's all they needed to sacrifice. Even a lost arm would be healed by the cultivators, who would appear 2 days later. Plus, Seo had already prepared an herb that would reduce the pain. Thinking all that, Seo removed his sleeves and extended his hand toward the seven-tailed fox. While trembling, he told it that he would offer his arm. Everyone was shocked that Seo was sacrificing his hand for them. The seven-tailed fox opened its mouth and immediately lunged at Seo, saying, "You know your manners, so I will try to make it as painless as possible in return." Then, in the next second, with a loud scream of pain, Seo lost one arm. The seven-tailed fox completely bit off Seo's hand and ate it. Everyone looked away. They couldn't bear to see the horrifying scene right in front of them. Seo was in too much pain. Tears streamed down his face as he extended his other arm to grab the herb. The pain was so intense that Seo didn't have time to think about anything else at the moment. He immediately ate the herb he had prepared for pain relief. After eating Seo's hand, the seven-tailed fox told Seo that it thought he might taste different, since he smelled different. But he tasted the same as the other humans. Actually, he tasted worse because of all the impurities in his veins. Hearing the fox, Seo began to come back to his senses. He was surprised to see that the herb actually helped a lot with the pain. After calming down, Seo apologized to the seven-tailed fox, saying his offering was not good enough. But the fox was not interested in talking. It turned around to leave, telling them that it would allow them to stay for 7 days in its territory and that they wouldn't die thanks to its divinity. Saying that, it leapt into the sky with super speed and disappeared. After the seven-tailed fox left, a worried group ran toward Seo to check on him. Seo slowly stood up and asked everyone to go inside, saying he would explain everything. Once inside the cave, Seo slowly told them that he had met the fox when he left the cave early that morning. The fox told him that they were in Muram. Everyone was shocked to hear they were in Muram. Director Kim asked Seo if he meant they were really in Muram because it was unbelievable. Seo said it didn't matter and told them they would be safe for a week since he had given up his arm. Hearing that it was just a week, Director Kim asked Seo what would happen after that. Breathing heavily, Seo told Director Kim that they would need to give up something else the following week. Hearing that, everyone was stunned. As the herb's effects kicked in, Seo started to get sleepy. He told the others that he was getting sleepy and would rest a bit, hoping they would understand. Saying that, he fell asleep right there. Then, 15 hours later at night, Seo woke up alone in the cave. He heard his colleagues talking outside. They were all angry at John, asking him how he could say that Manager Zoe sacrificed his own arm. John argued back, asking, then who wants to give up their arm and leg every week? But Chief O told John that Manager So was very useful since he was the one who provided them food and shelter. Then John suggested they should learn as much as they could from So in a week, adding that since So had already lost an arm, he wouldn't last long anyway. That's why they should have him be the sacrifice again. Joan said all that, not knowing Seo had woken up and was listening from behind. Seo was surprised to hear that now that he had become debilitated, Joan wanted to chop off one of his limbs every week to give to the fox. That was definitely not pleasing. Looking at Joan, Seo grabbed a rock from the ground. He looked at the rock and thought that with the violence he had learned from being beaten up for 50 years, he could easily kill a modern-day man like Jeon Myung-hoon with one arm. He looked at John again, who was still convincing others to force Seo to give up his other arm too. Angrily, Seo thought to himself whether he should kill Jun, but he didn't act recklessly. Instead, he threw the rock back and returned to the cave. He understood that fear had surely paralyzed their minds, and if he acted too cruelly now, it would cause issues with his relationship with Director Kim. Suddenly, Chief O shouted at Jun to shut up if he didn't want his ankles broken again. Hearing that, Seo laughed. He was right to think that they were good people. It was just a confusing situation for everyone. The next day, as the sun rose, everyone gathered in front of the cave. This time, a two-headed snake appeared before them. But, unlike the fox who had eaten Seo's arm, the two-headed snake only requested a small amount of blood. It was the very same snake that had sucked out Chief O's blood, who had lost his limbs in his last life. Hearing that it was just a small amount, nervous Chief O put his own arm forward this time, but after drinking Chief O's blood, the snake vomited, saying, "This is disgusting. This is the worst human blood I have ever had." Hearing that, Chief O got furious, but Seo knew it was the blood of a 21st century worker drenched in nicotine and cholesterol. No wonder it tasted gross. So then turned around and asked John Myung-hoon to come with him to pick some herbs. Hearing that, John was shocked and asked So if he had just called him by his full name. But So didn't reply. Instead, he asked if John was hungry. John said he was. Seo walked toward Jun and said, "I will tell you about the fruits and edible herbs, so follow me." Seo got closer and whispered to Jun that he planned to give his arm to the fox next week as well, and if he died, someone needed to know how to survive in this forest. Hearing that, Jun got very scared. Realizing that So had heard everything last night, he had no choice but to thank So and agree to go with him. Hearing his thanks, So laughed inside, because only he knew the fox wouldn't be coming back, and Jun would never make use of this knowledge. As both of them arrived at a place full of fruit trees, Seo shouted, "Jeon Myung-hoon, how many times do I need to tell you that that's the wrong fruit? Concentrate," Seo said sorry while picking a red fruit. Seeing that, Seo told him that fruit would get him killed. This continued for hours as Seo gave orders to Jung, and Jung had to follow them. Jun started to get exhausted and asked Seo to hold on, saying he needed a break. He had been digging non-stop to get these herbs. Seeing his condition, Seo laughed inside because this was how Jun used to punish him when he first entered the company. Seo told Jun that they needed to finish before dusk, so they should hurry up. Slowly, time passed, and both continued doing their part. Then, suddenly, Jun dug out a very large ginseng. Jun was shocked to see it. He held it in his hand and said, "This thing is massive." He asked Seo if this was natural ginseng. Seo told him it was something like that. Seo knew that while it did resemble ginseng, to be precise, it was a yellow bamboo root. It might be because the ascension path was so full of energy, but yellow bamboo roots, which are typically as small as a pinky finger, grew to this size here. Seo knew it wouldn't be of much use to cultivators, but it was an extremely precious medicine for martial artists used to increase ki, and it should help Director Kim. While talking, they found two more right there. Amazed, John asked Seo if it was okay to dig up this much wild ginseng. Seo, of course, said yes and told him to take off his shirt and place them in it. Seo looked at the setting sun and a crack in space. Seeing that, Seo realized it was almost time for those cultivators to come. He asked Jian, "Let's head back." As they returned to the cave, suddenly the crack Seo had seen before exploded with a huge blast, releasing massive amounts of spiritual energy into the sky. At the moment of the explosion, Chun fell to the ground, screaming while grabbing his head. Not only him, Chief O was in the same condition along with Manager Kang. All three of them were clutching their heads, screaming in pain. Seeing this, Director Kim began to panic, asking what had happened to them. Just then, three cultivators appeared, flying into the sky. Looking at John, Chief O, and Manager Kang, a cultivator named Buko wearing golden clothes, said, "What a surprise! To think we'd find such uncut talent here." A black-clothed cultivator named Hyogwok told Buko to go away, saying they were his. Hearing that, the third cultivator wearing blue clothes called Hyogwok shameless. Seeing these cultivators, Director Kim got scared and asked who they were. The cultivators noticed there were 7 people, but only the 3 had spiritual roots. The rest were just normal mortals. Then Buko raised his hands and created a ball of lightning. He struck Jun with it, and Jun screamed in pain as thousands of bolts of lightning entered his body. When Buko stopped, he was amazed to see how incredible Jun's body was. It was the body of heavenly golden thunder. Then Hyogwok came forward, telling Buko to move because it was his turn. Hyogwok was holding a musical instrument, and as he started playing, Manager Kang, who was covering her ears, suddenly began screaming in pain. But it wasn't a normal scream. It was so loud that the whole forest echoed. Seeing that, Hyogwok got too excited, realizing that Manager Kang had the ghostly yin transforming immortal root. He hadn't thought such a thing really existed. Then it was the third cultivator's turn. He landed on the ground and, grabbing Chief O's shoulder, injected his spiritual energy into him. He checked Chief O's body and found that it was a unique holy body. Chief O was too shocked, asking the cultivator what was going on. The cultivator smiled and declared that he would take all 3 of them as disciples of the Azure Heaven creation sect, because all 3 had the talent to change the entire world. With a deep voice, he asked Chief O, "How does that sound, Chief?" O was terrified in the cultivator's presence. He couldn't even breathe. He was confused, wondering what this force was and felt like he would die if he refused. Suddenly, Hyogwok came down and asked Chief O to join the Black Ghost Valley instead, saying they had every cultivation method, immortality, the power to overturn the heavens, fame, and wealth. He promised to ensure they would get all of those things within 100 years. Suddenly, Buko also came down and asked Hyogwok what he was saying, claiming that the Golden Divine Heavenly Thunder sect was the most suited for them. While they were talking, Director Kim intervened and asked the cultivators if they could get them out of this forest because at this rate they would all die there. But the cultivators completely ignored him. Buko took out a bottle and opened its cap, saying, "Mortals worry too much. How did you get to the ascension path with such a worthless body?" Saying that, he pointed the bottle's mouth toward Jean, and the bottle sucked Jean inside. Jean could only scream for help. Then the blue cloth cultivator took Chifo and looked at Siuv. He smiled and said, "Seems like one of them lost an arm to that fox," and seeing the wound, he offered it up himself. He used his spiritual power to heal Sio's hand, telling him that he may be a mere mortal, but he had guts. Sio's whole hand grew back, and he thanked the cultivator. Hyogwok also took Manager Kang with him. Then all 3 cultivators flew back into the sky and, while leaving, told Seo that they had captured all the beasts and monsters of the Ascension Path on their way here, so it would be safe here for the next 10 years. Seeing them leave, Director Kim chased after them, asking them to hold on and to tell them where to go because they didn't even know which way to take to leave. He called out to Section Chief Jeong, Chief O, and Deputy Manager Kang, but it was no use. The cultivators flew into the sky and disappeared. Seeing them go, Seo was very disappointed, but it was no use because the same thing had happened 50 years ago. No matter how hard they shouted, those cultivators ignored them like insects and continued on their way. Seo was a little relieved that at least they had healed his arm. While chasing after them, Director Kim ran out of breath and fell to the ground, asking, "What do you want us to do in a forest like this?" But before he lost all hope, suddenly Director Kim saw many beams of light flying in the direction those cultivators had gone. Seeing that, he got confused and asked, "What are all those lights in the sky? Is there something in that direction?" But Director Kim could not leave his team behind, so he returned. The next day, it was a rainy day with lightning striking all around. All four Manager Kim, Manager, and Director Kim were hiding in the same cave. But Deputy Manager O's condition was not good. She was coughing up blood while lying on the ground. Manager Kim asked Sei if there was some kind of herb they could use because Deputy Manager O was in terrible condition. She was panicking, not knowing what to do. Knowing the future, Sei told Manager Kim, "Let's wait a little longer. Someone might appear and heal her." Hearing that, Manager Kim got confused. Suddenly, they heard someone's footsteps. Someone entered the cave and said, "Mortals in the Ascension Path are like ants suffering among the competition between dragons." Seeing that man, Director Kim jumped right in front and asked, "Who are you?" The person smiled and said, "I am the Sea Dragon King, Soehuol." The Sea Dragon King, Hueol, told them that Deputy Manager O was controlling the storm outside. Hearing that, everyone was shocked. The Sea Dragon King explained that the storm suddenly appeared out of nowhere, so he came to look for its cause. Pointing at Deputy Manager O, he said that the lady lying over there must have used the sorcery of the storm. The Sea Dragon King was amazed, because she was an ordinary woman without even a trace of cultivation, so how could she wield such overwhelming power? Additionally, she was not even doing it consciously, which was very strange. Hearing that, Seo told the Sea Dragon King that actually, they were the confused ones. They had only been in this place for a short time, yet, one after another, powerful people like him appeared and took away their companions. Hearing that, the Sea Dragon King couldn't control his laughter. He asked So if he was saying that among his colleagues there were a few with extraordinary potential. And then, as if prearranged, powerful cultivators showed up and took them away. And now, here he was, conveniently appearing in front of this woman. Seo told the Sea Dragon King, that's exactly what happened." Looking at Seo, the Sea Dragon King smiled and asked, "Dear mortal, do you know where we are?" He told Seo that this place was known as the Ascension Path, or the Path to Ascension. It was a key gateway that leads to the upper realm. In just a few months, a dimensional rift called the Ascension Gate would open right around here. It happens once every 1,000 years. Countless high-level cultivators and spiritual beings would have already begun gathering around the path to ascension to ascend to the upper realm. So, isn't it quite likely that cultivators like him would appear near them? Hearing that, Seo finally understood everything. Then Director Kim told the Sea Dragon King that those cultivators said they were taking his colleagues to join their sects, and if they were ascending to the upper realm, how could his colleagues join them? Hearing that, the Sea Dragon King told them it might be hard for mortals like them to understand. He took out a bottle similar to those the cultivators had and explained that there was a technique among cultivators used to shrink large objects and store them inside magical tools like this. Those cultivators would have likely stored their sects inside items like these. Their goal was to ascend to the upper realm, along with their entire sect, when the Ascension Gate opened. The Sea Dragon King told them that in fact he too had packed one of the undersea castles of his Sea Dragon clan inside this very item. Inside it, 1,800 sea dragons lie dormant. Hearing that, Seo and Director Kim's jaws dropped in shock. The Sea Dragon King patted Deputy Manager O's head, saying she was how peculiar and intriguing. If she were to join the Sea Dragon clan, she could become something extraordinary. Seeing him patting the unconscious Deputy Manager O's head, Director Kim jumped to stop the Sea Dragon King, but the next second he fell to his knees as a very powerful force pinned him to the ground. When Director Kim tried to fight that force, it increased every time, putting more pressure on him. The one putting that pressure was the Sea Dragon King. He lifted Deputy Manager O in his hand and told Director Kim that he would give Deputy Manager O his blood and accept her as his kin, and that would be best for all of them. He also gave one more piece of advice. Looking at Director Kim with his green glowing eyes, he warned him not to casually ask high-level cultivators questions. Just as he said that, the pressure on Director Kim and O increased, and both of their eyeballs popped out. While holding Deputy Manager O in his hands, the Sea Dragon King walked away from there, telling them that he answered because he was generous, but most cultivators would have killed them for the mere act of asking a question. Saying that, he walked out of the cave into the thunderstorm, transformed into his real dragon form, and flew back into the sky. Then, the next morning, the thunderstorm suddenly stopped and the weather cleared. Manager Kim was too shocked by the fact that all her colleagues had been kidnapped. She could not understand what was happening. An avalanche out of nowhere, then immortals and dragons abducting their companions? She could not digest all of this and began to lose her mind. Seeing her like that, Seo approached, trying to calm her down. But while shaking, Manager Kim said, "Manager Seo, please, you must not be taken as well. If you're taken too, I won't be able to survive in this forest alone." Saying that, she started crying. Seeing her like that, Seo wanted to reassure her that he would not leave her, but he knew that unfortunately, their time was up. Just then, Manager Kim felt something in her head and screamed. She fell to the ground, grabbing her head, and told Seo that something was coming. Seeing her screaming, Director Kim came running and asked what's wrong with her now. Suddenly, the whole jungle went wild. All the birds in the sky and all the animals in the forest started running for their lives. Manager Kim started shaking and told them that it was Head. Hearing that, Director Kim got confused, and before he could understand anything, suddenly an old man riding a mechanical lion appeared. That old man was shocked to see mortals there and asked how mere mortals had gotten into the path to ascension. But looking at them, it didn't take that old man long to understand that when the ascension gate was about to open, the surrounding space became unstable and they must have been caught in a spatial storm. He laughed, praising himself as a genius for understanding it immediately. He then came down from his mechanical lion and asked them who was the one who had just emitted that massive consciousness. He laughed, saying that it was such a powerful presence he had thought a sage from the upper realm had descended. Looking at Deputy Manager Oh's condition, he asked if it was her. Director Kim came forward and stopped the old man, saying, "Who are you?" "Manager Kim is our colleague." But with just one swing of his finger, the old man sent Director Kim flying to one side. Seeing that, Seo immediately jumped to catch Director Kim to protect him. He caught Director Kim but was also sent flying, crashing to the ground. Director Kim was uninjured and thanked Deputy Manager Seo, but Seo didn't respond. Seeing that, Director Kim panicked and helped Seo up. To their surprise, Seo's whole back was exposed and injured because of crashing on the ground. Director Kim was shocked seeing that and asked Seo if he was all right. Seo, in a slow voice, told Director Kim he was okay. On the other hand, the old man went to Deputy Manager Oh and grabbed her by the chin, asking, "Child, let me take you in. You don't have any spiritual root, but I can awaken it for you with my power." The old man wondered what would happen if such a strange consciousness evolved into a cultivator's divine consciousness. Hearing that, Deputy Manager Oh started crying and looked at Seo and Director Kim for help. Seeing her looking at them, the old man looked at Seo and Director Kim and asked if she was still clinging to her worldly attachments even after he offered to take her in. This made the old man angry. Using his powers, he grabbed both Seo and Director Kim by the neck and lifted them into the air. Both of them started struggling to breathe. The old man told Deputy Manager Oh that he would sever all her worldly ties for her himself. Seeing both of them struggling like that, Deputy Manager Oh got very scared. She started crying, begging the old man to please stop. She told him she would do anything he asked if he just spared them. Hearing that, the old man told Deputy Manager Oh that she must forget all her worldly attachments. While crying, Deputy Manager Oh told him she understood. After hearing that, the old man spared Seo and Director Kim, and both of them fell to the ground. But the old man knew that if he left them there, she would remain attached, so he decided to return them to a mortal nation nearby. Saying that, he used his spiritual powers and opened a portal. The old man told Deputy Manager Oh that both of her colleagues would be randomly scattered through a dimensional rift, and not even he knew where they would land. Just as he said that, the huge portal opened and started sucking both Seo and Director Kim inside. Director Kim was immediately sucked into the portal before he could even understand what was happening, while Seo, before getting sucked in, used all his power to grab the herbs he had collected the previous day. Then both of them got sucked inside. Deputy Manager Oh at the opening of the portal was crying for them. As the portal closed, everything turned black. Suddenly, a whole crowd's voices filled their ears. A street vendor's voice came saying, "We have the finest silks in Yangguo. We have newly arrived scriptures from Shenzi." Both Seo and Director Kim were lying unconscious on the ground. Seo was the first to regain consciousness. As he stood up, he looked ahead and saw that he was in an alleyway, with many people walking down the street ahead. Seo didn't recognize this place and wondered where he was. The reason he didn't recognize it was that in his previous life, he hadn't fallen into a place like this. He slowly stood up, realizing that the immortal had been telling the truth, that where they landed was random. As Seo walked out of the alleyway, he found that this path felt familiar for some reason. Looking around, he finally understood that this was the place he had once lived in for those 50 years. There was a huge 10-story building right in front of Seo. Seeing that building, he finally recognized that this was the capital of Yangguo, Seokyung City. After witnessing the scene outside, Seo returned to Director Kim and woke him up. Director Kim was very exhausted and told Manager Seo that he couldn't keep up with what was going on anymore. Sitting beside Seo, he told Director Kim he felt the same way. It would be nice if this was all just a dream. Director Kim couldn't believe that it was just the two of them left behind, but he thought he should be relieved that they weren't taken by those monsters. Seo just looked at the confused Director Kim and didn't say anything because even he didn't know about this. He may have regressed, but in his past life, he was nothing but a powerless herb gatherer. So then told Director Kim that they couldn't stay in this alleyway forever, so why didn't they get out of here? Director Kim said, "All right," and both of them left the alleyway. But as they came out, all the people of that place started staring at them while talking in some unknown language. Hearing those people, Director Kim got very confused. He asked Seo, "What are they saying? It sounds like Chinese. Why are the people whispering while looking at us?" Seo told Director Kim those people were saying the clothes both of them were wearing looked funny. Hearing that, Director Kim was shocked. Seo smiled and told him not to worry because he knew a bit of Chinese. Director Kim wanted to ask him something, but seeing Seo's injured back, he didn't ask and said, "That's great," Seo said that, but in reality he lied to Director Kim. The language those people were speaking was not Chinese. Other than the fact that they used the same characters, it sounded completely different. In his past life, Seo had to endure the mockery of beggars for 2 months just to learn the basics of the language, but now there was no need for that. So took out the herbs he had collected earlier and asked Director Kim if they should get some new clothes. Hearing that, Director Kim was confused and asked how, because he felt like the people of this place wouldn't accept their money. Seo didn't explain to Director Kim and just took him to the city's medicine hall. The owner of the medicine hall was shocked to see the ginseng and asked Seo if he was really letting them buy such precious herbs. Seo acted tough and told the owner that those yellow bamboo roots were at least 800 years old. The owner said, "Of course," and told him that the roots should be worth about 15 silver ingots. Hearing 15 silver ingots, even Seo got nervous because he had never had that much money in his past life. But he didn't lose his composure and asked the shop owner to hurry up and take the money. The shop owner said yes and immediately gave Seo the money. After leaving, Seo and Director Kim first bought some clothes and then bought a house in the city. Director Kim was shocked to see the house they were going to live in. So said yes and told Director Kim that from today onward, he would teach him the language of this place. Hearing that, Director Kim got very happy and thanked Manager Seo. Seo made it seem like there was no problem, but after bribing some guys for identity plaques and buying the land and house, they only had 1 silver ingot left. He guessed it was because they were in the capital, and that's why everything was so expensive there. While Seo was looking at the money, Director Kim noticed Seo's back. Even after wearing new clothes because of the injuries on his back, his new clothes had turned red. Seeing how much Seo had helped him, Director Kim suggested to Seo that since they were in a whole new place now, why didn't he just call him by his name? Surprised to hear that, Seo told Director Kim that he was fine with that. Director Kim smiled and thanked him while calling him by his full name, So Eun-hyun. Then at night, after settling down in the house, Seo explained to Director Kim that the reason he was able to get all that money was because he sold those herbs. Pointing at the 2 remaining ginseng roots right in front of him, Seo told Director Kim that they wouldn't have a source of income if they ran out of herbs, so they needed to figure out a way to bring in money. Hearing that, Director Kim looked at the ginseng and wondered how. Suddenly, he got an idea and suggested to Seo that they use the silver they would get from selling the rest of the herbs to start a business. It was a good plan. Seo knew that with all the money they could get from this, as well as Director Kim's skill set from having been a director in a mid-sized company, they should be able to make a living. But that wasn't enough. Seo thought that since he had regressed, why not dream bigger? He knew that Director Kim was a martial genius who, after reading some third-rate martial arts books sold on the streets, became a martial master in just a few months. Once he learned more advanced techniques, he became one of the most powerful martial artists in the Jianghu. But what if he were to learn advanced martial arts from the start? Seo might be able to bring forward the birth of the greatest swordsman in the Jianghu by at least 30 years. Thinking all that, Seo smiled and decided he was going to benefit as much as he could while working for him. He told Director Kim that this was Mudim, a world of martial arts. This attracted Director Kim's attention. Seo told Director Kim that who knows when the gangs of the Jianghu might come for them if they set up a business, so shouldn't they at least learn a bit of self-defense? Director Kim's face lit up hearing the words martial arts, but he knew they didn't teach people outside the sects their martial arts. So he asked Seo how they would learn. Seeing his excitement, Seo smiled because, as a well-known Muram novel nerd, he knew Director Kim would be interested. He explained to Director Kim that in this city there are 7 famous sects. Among them the demon-slaying sect, self-binding temple, suppressing birdhouse, and the 7 mysteries sect are on the orthodox side of the Jianghu, whereas the Wolfang Gang, the Dark Knight Association, and the dragon-fighting stronghold are considered unorthodox. The people call them the 4 stars and the 3 demons. The demon-slaying sect mainly learns sword and blade techniques. The self-binding temple is a Buddhist sect, while the suppressing birdhouse is like the House sect. They focus on intelligence. The 7 mysteries sect has a very long history and teaches all kinds of martial arts. On the other hand, there isn't much information known about the 3 demons. It is said they are proficient in stealth techniques and sorcery and do a lot of illegal things. After explaining everything, So asked Director Kim which sect he liked best. Without a second thought, Director Kim chose the demon-slaying sect, adding that a martial artist should wield a sword and a man should learn blade techniques. Hearing his choice, Seo thought this was fitting for the man who was called the best swordsman in his past life, but Director Kim was confused and asked Seo how he knew all this. Seo laughed and told Director Kim that he had been eavesdropping on some martial artists talking earlier. Then, 3 months later, Seo and Director Kim went to the demon-slaying sect, but the guards stopped them, asking what brought them there. Seo introduced Director Kim as his older brother and told the guards that they had heard about how famous the demon-slaying sect was and came wishing to learn martial arts. The guard of the demon-slaying sect was a very strict, muscular guy. He looked at Seo and Director Kim's clothes and thought they looked like they had a decent amount of money, but he told Director Kim that learning martial arts at his age would be difficult. Seo laughed and offered a silver coin to the guard, asking if he wouldn't at least let them talk to someone of higher status, adding that even just simple self-defense training would do. Like that, while bribing the guard, Seo and Director Kim entered the demon-slaying sect. There, they met an elder of the sect. The elder asked if they wanted to learn martial arts for self-defense. Seo said they wanted to learn the best there was, offering a box full of silver nuggets. Seeing all those silver nuggets, the elder agreed, saying he supposed Seo could join as an external disciple. But after getting the silver nuggets, he added that they didn't give special treatment to those who joined with donations and, in addition, they would only accept one of them. Hearing that, Seo was shocked because all that money was worth only 1 yellow bamboo root and that was all they were willing to do for them. They're shocked, Director Kim tried to ask the elder if they were ripping them off, but before he could say anything more, Seo accepted the elder's conditions and thanked him, adding that his brother would be the one learning. Hearing that, Director Kim was very shocked. Then, while leaving, the elder asked Director Kim to come outside later, to where all the external disciples gathered. As he left, Director Kim asked Seo what was the use if only he would learn martial arts. He said he would have chosen a different group had he known they'd be so expensive. Seo turned around with a smile and told Director Kim not to sweat it, saying it's not like he had ever been good at sports anyway. He told Director Kim that he would just set up a business with the remaining money and support him, so he should just focus on learning martial arts. Director Kim was shocked to hear that. He couldn't believe how much Seo was sacrificing for him. He told So he would try his best, but Director Kim was still hesitant because he was old and didn't know if he would really be able to do much. So told him to believe in himself, that he could do it. Director Kim thanked So and left to train with the outer disciples. Then, 7 months later, at a competition held within the sect, all the elders of the demon-slaying sect were shocked and angry seeing the scene in front of them. The elders of the sect believed that the sect would end when knowledge had evolved in a way that made them impervious to it. Thereby, the sect ascended in stature, in their seemingly infinite wisdom. In just 7 months, Director Kim had defeated all their disciples. The elders were very angry, asking how some outsider from nowhere defeated all their beloved disciples in just 7 months. The demon-slaying sect was in an uproar.
To master a martial art means to understand the true meaning that the martial art holds and to physically attune to it. A third-rate warrior who understands the meaning of a martial art can become second-rate if they merge it into their own understanding. To advance from there, one needs more than double the amount of understanding compared to before, along with equally more time and effort. But sometimes, people with enough talent seem to laugh at typical levels of understanding and speed through many stages at once. The demon-slaying sect is full of such talented martial artists, the great sect of Seokyeong City. However, an outsider has come to defeat the direct disciples of that great sect. Within 7 months, Director Kim became a first-rate warrior who had completely mastered the absolute dragon saber technique of the demon-slaying sect. The Grand Elder of the demon-slaying sect was furious seeing Director Kim because he knew it was impossible to reach first-rate with just half a year of learning martial arts. The level of first-rate is a stage only attainable with the collaborative efforts of many skilled martial artists. On top of that, Director Kim was an outsider learning in their sect. To others it would seem that their tradition had knelt to that one man. The Grand Elder immediately ordered the sect guards to capture Director Kim. Like that, Director Kim was captured and put in a house guarded by hundreds of guards. But now, even CO was captured. He knew that because an outsider had gained skills befitting an elder of a sect within 7 months, the sect was in chaos. In such a ridiculous situation, Director Kim was imprisoned in his quarters, suspected of being a spy of another sect. However, CO didn't know why he was also considered a suspect when he didn't know martial arts. CO asked Director Kim, who was practicing his sword techniques, if he wasn't worried. Director Kim laughed and asked CO what he should worry about. CO told him it was about them suspecting him as a spy. In martial arts novels, they typically destroy one's chi core or even cut off their chi flow. Director Kim admitted that it was true, but told CO that for some reason he thought he was approaching the next wall, and if he crossed it, he believed he could advance to the next stage. CO was shocked hearing that and asked what kind of monster Director Kim was. It hadn't even been long since he had become a first-rate martial artist, and now he was already nearing the next stage. CO knew that martial peak awaited after first-rate. That level was where most sect leaders of great sects or elders were at. In Yangguo, they were known as absolute masters, and there were only about 1,000 of them in the whole nation. The martial arts world never mentions the stage after that, so martial peak is essentially the last stage one can attain by learning martial arts. CO realized that his assumptions were wrong. At this rate, the birth of the greatest swordsman in the world would be sped up by 40 years, not 30. Then, 7 days later, CO and Director Kim were still in captivity. But during this time, Director Kim was not resting. He was practicing and meditating. After 7 days, all the energy he gathered turned into tree energy lotus flowers. Director Kim inhaled that lotus energy through his mouth. CO was shocked to see those lotuses because he knew that those were the flowers of chi that only appeared to peak martial artists, and 3 flowers gathered at the summit. After completely absorbing those chi flowers, Director Kim stood up and told So he had crossed the barrier, and now he was not so scared of the demon-slaying sect leader anymore. Hearing that, CO laughed and told Director Kim that his talent far exceeded his imagination. Director Kim smiled and told CO that he was also impressed by himself. He never knew he would have such talent. He mused that maybe this was why he always loved martial arts novels as a kid. Just then, an elder of the demon-slaying sect, accompanied by many guards, entered the house and announced, "Here comes Jim Young-hoon and his comrade." The elder took out a paper and told them they had orders from the sect leader to destroy the chi core of the spy who dared to steal the martial arts of the demon-slaying sect. Hearing that, Director Kim looked at the elder angrily, but Seo got scared and tried to explain. "We weren't spies, we were just..." Before he could finish, the elder punched Seo in the face, telling him to be silent because they had even heard the two of them speaking in a code-like language. He ordered the guards to restrain them. But before they could act, Director Kim pulled out his sword and before anyone could react, cut down the elder's hand with lightning speed. The elder was shocked to see that and also lost his sword. Director Kim pointed his sword at the elder and told him that this was his first sect and he wasn't a spy. However, a guard standing behind didn't listen and jumped to attack Director Kim. Before his sword could even touch Director Kim moved with lightning speed and cut down the hands of all the guards in the room. Seeing that, all the guards started running away, realizing that he was a peak-level martial artist. They immediately went to inform the sect leader. Seeing them running away, Director Kim told Seo that he intended to visit other sects to train and asked him what he would do. Seo immediately replied that he would accompany Director Kim and suggested they go to the acclaimed unorthodox sect, the Dragon Fighting Stronghold. Hearing that, Director Kim laughed and told him to go ahead and that they would meet there, adding that he would end the pursuit of the demon-slaying sect's elders and leader. Then, a few hours later, at the Dragon Fighting Stronghold's mountain range, Director Kim was standing on top of a cliff with his sword and asked Seo what took him so long. Seo, breathing heavily after climbing for so long, laughed and told Director Kim he was just too fast. While talking with Director Kim, Seo's attention was on the sword Director Kim was holding, which was soaked in blood. Seeing the sword, Seo thought that Director Kim used to call him Violence Out until recently. But even if it was to survive, this world changed them into something else. Seo thought it'd be great if they could return, not to this martial arts world, but to everyday life on Earth. And if he were to regress, he wished he could just return to Earth. Thinking all that, Seo climbed the mountain and followed Director Kim, knowing that it couldn't be helped. Now that they were here, they needed to do what they could. After being betrayed by the demon-slaying sect, Director Kim took over the dragon-fighting stronghold. 2 years later, he toured each region of Yangguo to defeat various sects, and in the 3rd year, he finally managed to destroy the emblems of every sect. Director Kim was known as the greatest martial artist under the heavens, and he used that fame to unite the sects, forming the Martial Alliance. Then, 7 years later, Director Kim and Seo were as close as brothers, ignoring the age gap. Director Kim created a martial art specifically suited for Seo and gave him the martial arts manual, saying, "This is the Severing Mountain Sword." Seo took the manual and started reading it. Director Kim explained to Seo that he named the martial art hoping Seo would inherit its will that could even cut down mountains. If he mastered the Severing Mountain Sword, he knew Seo would be able to reach martial peak. Reading the book, Seo was shocked because, aside from the things Director Kim had told him, the Dragon Vein Chi method created alongside it was true first-rate martial arts, very different from any second- or third-rate martial arts. It was a very powerful technique, and Seo started practicing it. But if there was a problem, it was that even then Seo could not learn it, and would fall to the ground immediately when facing Director Kim. Seeing that, Director Kim told Seo that he really had no talent. Yes, Seo's talent was absolutely terrible. Even though the best martial artist under the heavens created a martial art suited for him and taught him one-on-one, Seo barely made it to 3rd rate after an entire year. A year later, Seo admitted that it couldn't be helped. He told Director Kim that he did have some talent in medicine at least, as people are talented in different areas. Then, one day after the decade had passed, Seo witnessed something amazing. He saw Director Kim meditating with 5 chi flower balls forming above his head. Seo was amazed to see that because this was a level he had only heard of in legends. It was 5 energies converging to the origin. Suddenly, Director Kim's whole body started releasing huge amounts of internal chi. All his bones and joints began cracking, and the energy around him completely changed as Director Kim's white hair of old age turned black again. It was a divine scene as Director Kim's whole body went into transformation, releasing so much energy that even standing nearby was impossible. After everything calmed down, Seo looked ahead and was shocked to see Director Kim. Director Kim, who had turned into a young man, laughed and asked Seo what had him so surprised. His voice, his face, and his body had completely turned into that of a young man. This is called skeletal restructuring. Shocked, Seo called Director Kim brother, telling him he looked even younger than him. Director Kim laughed, asking if he really looked that way. He told Seo he felt so full of life, like he could do anything. Seo told Director Kim that the world would be shocked when they saw him completely transformed. While wearing his clothes, Director Kim said certainly. He walked toward Seo and told him that it was about time he handed over the Murim Alliance to the next leader. But Seo knew that there was no one who caught Director Kim's eye. Director Kim told Seo that he was right. The Murim Alliance leader, by definition, needed a certain level of martial arts, but there wasn't a single one who truly understood martial arts. Seo laughed and told Director Kim that was because he was abnormal. Where else in the world would there be a genius like him? Director Kim looked out the window to see the disciples practicing martial arts and told Seo that even so, they needed to find someone. But Seo insisted there were no talented people. Then, 25 years later, in a building in the middle of the Murim Alliance, Seo was writing with a brush. 35 years had passed since he had started his life again in Deongseonhyang. His hair had turned gray as he was already in his mid-60s. Now he wondered where young Director Kim was and what he was doing. A year after his transformation, Director Kim handed over the position of Murim Alliance leader to the next generation and retired. Seo too wanted to retire with him then, but to set the chaotic Murim Alliance straight, he had to remain in the position of the Murim Alliance's strategist for a long time. Director Kim told Seo that he wanted to wander the martial world and travel all over Yon Kingdom. Perhaps because of that, he didn't even come to Seo's retirement ceremony in the end. Old Seo came out of his room to get some fresh air. Looking around the house, he felt lonely. He had bought this house with a big heart using his retirement money, but it was too big to live in alone. That was the problem. While he was thinking about all that, suddenly he heard someone coming out of the bushes. He got alert and asked, "Who's there?" But when he got closer to check, he was surprised to see Director Kim there in torn clothes. He asked Director Kim what was with the beggar's appearance and why he hadn't even come to his retirement ceremony. "Where did you go?" Director Kim laughed and fell to the ground. Seeing him like that, Seo asked if something had happened. Looking at the sky, Director Kim told Seo that he truly thought he had blessed martial talent. Sitting beside Seo, Director Kim asked, "Isn't that right? If I'm not a genius, then what am I?" Director Kim said, "That's right. I am clearly a martial arts genius. Perhaps in this Yan Kingdom or among ordinary people like me, no one can match my martial talent." Hearing Director Kim call himself an ordinary person, Seo got confused and asked how he could be ordinary. "Who under this sky doesn't know that you are the world's #1? Before Seo could finish his words, Director Kim said in a deep voice that he fought against those cultivators and asked Seo if he remembered them. 35 years ago, those monsters who kidnapped their comrades and flew in the sky. Seo, who had experienced that time twice, immediately remembered and was shocked to find out they were cultivators. Seo knew that they didn't easily reveal themselves but secretly worked throughout the Yan imperial family and manipulated Yan Kingdom itself. After establishing the Murim alliance, as its influence grew somewhat in Yan Kingdom, those cultivator forces began to seriously interfere with them. Director Kim was displeased with this, but to defy them was to fight against the nation itself. So, to protect the Murim alliance, they had no choice but to obey them. Because of that, Director Kim stepped down from his position as Murim alliance leader and, as a human, sought them out alone throughout Yan Kingdom to contend with them. Director Kim told Seo that those cultivators were truly hard to find, and even if he found one and tried to fight, they completely ignored him, saying he wasn't worth fighting for. Then they would leave using illusions or flight techniques, making it hard to seize an opportunity. But 5 years ago, he finally got to fight a cultivator. Hearing that, Seo got very excited and asked Director Kim if he won. Director Kim told him that he did. Hearing that, Seo laughed and told Director Kim that if he had done that during his time as Murim Alliance leader, he would have grabbed him by the back of his neck. But while shaking hands, Director Kim told Seo that fighting for his life against that cultivator who had reached the Qi condensation realm, he could barely scratch his fingertip. Hearing that, Seo was shocked. Director Kim said that the cultivator he fought said even if Director Kim just grazed his body, he would count it as Director Kim's win, so he did win. Still, Director Kim was very disappointed. Seo then asked him if the cultivator at the Qi condensation realm was one of the 10 great masters of the cultivation world or something like that. Director Kim said no and told Seo that the cultivator said his realm was second from the bottom in the cultivation world. In martial arts terms, he was a second-rate warrior. Hearing that, Seo was stunned. He could not understand anything and asked Director Kim what nonsense he was talking about. In his past life and in this life, Seo knew that cultivators were formidable beings, but Young Hoon's martial arts clearly touched the heavens. He was a person who literally used skywalking to perform martial arts in the air and could cut through millennium-old steel and buildings like tofu. But such a martial arts genius, all he could do was scratch the fingertip of a bottom-tier cultivator. With disappointment on his face, Director Kim said, "I was a frog in a well. We can never stand against cultivators. They are like natural disasters." Hearing all that, Seo started sweating. He got scared hearing Director Kim's stories. But then Director Kim took out a hand from his pocket, telling Seo that today he cut that cultivator's wrist. Hearing that, Seo got happy and asked Director Kim if that didn't mean his martial arts surpassed that cultivator. But Director Kim immediately declined and told Seo that the cultivator just put on a talisman and his hand grew back. Saying that, Director Kim stood up and told Seo that it seemed his martial path ended here. Surprised, Seo asked him what he meant by that. Director Kim told Seo that he came to say goodbye today. He laughed and said, "That person said he highly regarded my will and would take me into his cultivation sect, and I'll probably start as the youngest." Hearing that, Seo asked Director Kim if becoming a cultivator meant becoming an immortal, and didn't they say it was impossible for a body without spiritual roots? Director Kim told him that for a regular mortal, the stage of 5 energies converging to the origin is equivalent to the 5-element spiritual root that cultivators are naturally born with. He told Seo that to gain the trait that cultivators are born with, mortals like them must use their entire lives to even manifest that basic quality. Saying that, Director Kim swung his sword and cut open the space itself, creating a door in mid-air. While entering that door, Director Kim told Seo that he would now go and must aim for a higher stage. But before leaving, he handed Seo a book, saying, "This book is my last gift to you." He told Seo to stay safe and left before Seo could say anything. Seo checked the book, which was named Record of Transcending Cultivation and Exhausting Martial Arts. It was a record of attempting to use martial arts to surpass cultivation. He was very worried and looked into the air, asking Director Kim where he was going without him, but there was no reply. And so time passed. Now it had been 50 years since Seo came to this world, and here he lay dying of a common cold, just like in his previous life. This was fate. No matter how hard a human tries, they cannot escape fate. In the end, all that changed was his house and bed. He ultimately died on the same day. He lived his life to its limits because he didn't want to experience the same regret from his past life. He was so busy he hadn't even thought of marriage. And thanks to that, he was able to unite the Yangguo martial sects and experience plenty of the fame and wealth the mortal world could offer. But he could not understand the sense of emptiness in his heart. He wondered if they had struggled harder. Could Director Kim and he have reached the sky? Seo's body quaked in this sense of powerlessness. It was too regrettable, and that marked the end of Seo's second regression. After dying for the second time, Seo's eyes, which had gone blurry just a few seconds ago, opened again. He looked around and saw that he was in the same forest on the ascension path. Looking down, he noticed that his body was brimming with energy. Seeing that, he realized that regression wasn't just a one-time thing. As he was lost in his thoughts, suddenly Section Chief John charged at Seo in anger, shouting, "Deputy Manager Seo, you bastard!" But as John swung his hand to slap Seo, Seo reacted instantly and dodged the attack. John continued trying to punch him, but Seo effortlessly dodged every strike. He wasn't even paying attention to John. He was lost in thought, wondering, why did I regress? He knew that a new body full of energy and a fresh opportunity was undoubtedly a good thing. But what about everything he had built over the past 50 years? On the other hand, John began to get exhausted. Still swinging his fists to attack, he screamed at Seo, saying that he had almost gotten them all killed, and now he had the nerve to dodge. But Seo didn't respond to his words. He kept thinking, is this really a good thing? He knew the truth. It wasn't. This was a curse that denied him the meaning of life. Sure, a couple of regressions might feel like a blessed opportunity, but if this were to go on forever, Seo would be trapped in fate's wheel, forced to wallow in the suffering of life until the end of time. Moreover, he couldn't meet the people he knew in his previous life again. The people in front of him now were simply beings who shared the appearance of those he once cared for. Director Kim, whom he had thought of as an older brother, no longer existed in this world. Watching John trying to fight and becoming completely exhausted, Director Kim finally intervened, telling Section Chief John, "That's enough." Seo then told John to calm down, asking, "What help will being angry bring here?" Hearing that, John became even angrier, calling Seo shameless. But before he could say more, Seo spoke again. "In the first place, John, you were on driving duty today. I warned you before you forced me to drive that I hadn't slept last night, because of the work you offloaded on me." Seo turned to leave and asked John, how would I have even dodged an incoming avalanche on a narrow road? He advised John to stop pointing fingers and think instead about what they needed to do next. John was speechless. He was used to Seo always accepting blame and apologizing. Seo then turned to Director Kim and mistakenly called him by his name, just like he had in his previous life. But he immediately corrected himself. He told Director Kim that he would search for a place where they could stay before the sun set, and asked everyone else to look for the car or any possible way out of the forest. He added, "When the sun sets, I'll light a fire, so come over to it." Seo wasn't trying to please anyone anymore. He wasn't building relationships, because deep down he knew, what's the point of making bonds with people who would disappear again? In the end, he would always be alone. As the sun set, Seo lit the fire. After searching for the car, they all returned and saw the fire, Seo sitting beside it, the others asleep. But only Seo was awake, his eyes wide with fear. He feared the unending regression, the infinite loop of time. He knew this ability had to be removed and wondered if it would vanish if he somehow returned to Earth. But seeing how he always regressed back to this moment on the ascension path, he didn't know how to go home. He remembered what the old cultivator had said. When the ascension gate opens, nearby spaces destabilize. Ordinary humans could have been caught in spatial storms. Realizing that the ascension gate exists, Seo thought that it must be related to why they fell into this world. And maybe, just maybe, they could return to their original world using it. He decided that first, he must grow stronger. As an ordinary mortal, he couldn't accomplish anything. He needed to become a cultivator like Director Kim and start cultivating. Once he gained a longer lifespan through cultivation, he would be able to research the Ascension Gate properly. Seo came out of the cave at night, and while looking at the sky, he decided that he would become a cultivator and go to the Ascension Gate. The next day, as the sun rose, Seo left the cave and ventured into the forest. He went to the same place where he had previously found those 1,000-year-old ginsengs. He dug out as many as he could and began eating them immediately without stopping. By eating them, Seo could feel strong chi quakes within his core. In his previous life, he hadn't known any heart methods, so eating these yellow bamboo roots would have done nothing. But now, using the dragon vein chi method that Director Kim had made for him, he could break through the blocked chi passageways. Seo's heart, which had been extremely polluted, slowly began to cleanse itself. It started beating like it had when he was born. Seo began sweating heavily as he cultivated, but he understood. It wasn't easy to heal a body soaked in preservatives, fast food, and stress. Still, he didn't give up and continued. After eating those ginsengs, he went to train his body. He took a tree branch and, using rocks, carefully carved it into the shape of a sword. Looking at the somewhat sword-like stick, Seo thought, that should do the work. He started swinging his sword, remembering the training he had done in his previous life with Director Kim. He recalled his footwork and the way he used to swing his blade. In his past life, he had only been an average second-rate martial artist, and since he hadn't practiced near the end of his life, his skills had dulled. Of course, he wasn't completely helpless. He swung his wooden sword at a nearby tree using the Severing Mountain Sword first form. With just a wooden sword, Seo cut into the tree and created a deep mark. He could do this because the martial arts from his previous life were still all in his head. So, improving his skills was just a matter of time. But unknown to Seo, his sword practice had been seen by Director Kim, who had wandered into the forest. Director Kim was utterly shocked and called out from behind, asking, "What was that just now?" He ran up to Seo, asking, "How did you slash a tree with a wooden stick? Just what is that strength?" Seeing how excited Director Kim was, Seo smiled inside, thinking, "This is the man who will instruct me to become a cultivator." Seo turned to Director Kim and asked if he wanted to try learning this technique. Hearing that, Director Kim's face lit up with excitement. He asked Seo, "Can I really do it?" But before Seo could reply, something suddenly appeared and destroyed the tree where Seo had been practicing. It was none other than the nine-tailed fox. The nine-tailed fox glared at them angrily and shouted, "Filthy humans! How dare you play around in front of the master of this forest?" Seeing the nine-tailed fox, Director Kim was completely stunned. And not just him, even Seo grew very nervous. He had completely forgotten about the nine-tailed fox. In his second life, the nine-tailed fox had mercilessly bitten off Seo's arm. At that moment, Seo knew the only thing he could do now was endure, as the fox tore apart his arm and slightly eased its pain by applying pressure to his own acupoint, because he knew he was weak. In his first life, and even in his second, he was weak. But now, in this third life, as the nine-tailed fox appeared before him, Seo took a deep breath and walked toward it. Scared, everyone called out to Seo from behind, telling him not to go there. But Seo didn't listen to them and continued toward the nine-tailed fox. Even now, in his third regression, he still didn't know how his second life had ended up that way. In his previous life, Seo had decided to become a cultivator after reaching the five-path core. But even after learning martial arts under the best master for over 100 years, he was barely considered a second-rank mastery warrior. Seo grabbed one arm with the other and used his strength to cut off his own arm, because he knew that compared to the people gathered here, his talent was trash. Seeing Seo cut off his own arm, everyone was shocked and terrified. Seo offered the severed arm to the nine-tailed fox to eat, because whether it took 1,000 years or 10,000, he was determined not to give up. Seeing Seo willingly offer his own arm, the nine-tailed fox laughed and said, "Human, you know your place. You know how to offer yourself as a sacrifice." The nine-tailed fox then decided to have a taste of Seo's arm. Hearing that, Seo silently resolved to offer his arm to the fox until the day he surpassed its strength. After the fox ate Seo's arm, it allowed them to stay and then disappeared. Seo didn't care about the others. He simply went to a quiet place in the forest and kept swinging his sword. After a few days, the cultivators healed his arm and escorted his colleagues away. But Seo didn't eat, sleep, or rest. He kept swinging his sword. The only reason he stopped swinging on the fourth day was because the Sea Dragon King arrived. Seo greeted the Sea Dragon King with respect and said, "This lowly mortal dares to ask the Sea Dragon King a question." Seeing how respectful Seo was, the Sea Dragon King allowed him to speak. Seo asked, "It seems the Sea Dragon King wishes to take Miss O. But Miss O is just an ordinary person without spiritual roots, and ordinary humans cannot live longer than 100 years. So, what are your intentions toward her?" Hearing that, the Sea Dragon King laughed and said Co was quite an observant mortal, someone who understood the state of cultivators well. But he told them not to worry, because once Miss O accepted his blood, she would awaken spiritual roots suitable for her. Co was surprised to hear that and asked the Sea Dragon King if perhaps he could give them a chance as well, since Miss O was from the same hometown, and maybe they too might possess some hidden ability. Hearing that, the Sea Dragon King smiled and told Co to listen carefully. Just as he said that, Co felt an overwhelming pressure on his chest and collapsed to the ground. The Sea Dragon King said, "I will say one thing out of concern. Do not carelessly express your opinions to a high-ranking cultivator like me. We have lived for hundreds or even thousands of years. We see what mortals cannot see. We know what mortals do not know." He looked at Co with glowing green eyes and continued, "You have a good temperament, so I'll let it slide. But there are cruel ones who, just because your eyes met theirs, would tear you apart like insects and kill you." Saying that, the Sea Dragon King walked out of the cave with Miss O, then transformed into his dragon form and flew back into the sky. Seeing the Sea Dragon King's true form, Director Kim was completely shocked. The next day, as the weather cleared and everyone came out of the cave, they encountered the old cultivator riding the mechanical lion. As the old cultivator appeared, Co stepped forward, greeted him, and asked, "Our colleague Miss Kim is just an ordinary person without spiritual roots. So how could she possibly become your disciple?" Hearing that, the old cultivator laughed and took out an elixir, telling Co that it was a very precious elixir capable of opening spiritual channels. If one took it, even an ordinary person might gain the chance to become immortal. Co was shocked to hear that there was another way to become a cultivator. The old cultivator explained that it was possible for mortals to reach the realm of the five-path core by pushing their martial arts to the extreme, but that path took too long and the results were unsatisfactory, so this method was the best. After telling them everything, the old cultivator opened a portal to the mortal world and sent them into it, saying both of them were useless to him now, so they should get lost. Both Co and Director Kim fell into the teleportation portal, and Miss Kim could only watch them disappear, screaming. Co lost consciousness there, and the next time he opened his eyes, he found himself hanging from a tree branch above the ground. He looked ahead and saw a vast forest with some buildings in the middle. Seeing that, Co realized that this was the southwestern route army of the Yon Kingdom, his past life. Just like in the second regression, he had wandered all over the Yon Kingdom with Director Kim. Having traveled the Yon Kingdom for over 100 years, there were almost no places he didn't know now. Co climbed down from the tree and woke up Director Kim. After waking him up, both of them headed toward a nearby castle. Seo explained the situation to Director Kim, who seemed flustered, but likely because so much had happened already, he accepted most of it. A few days later, they arrived at the nearest Tiger Wall Castle. There, they sold herbal medicine from the Immortal Ascending Village and bought a house. Seo began teaching Director Kim how to write and speak the language, as well as how to use the Severing Mountain Blade, which Director Kim had originally created in his second regression. Seo then modified the Severing Mountain Sword to better suit the weapon Kim used. Seo felt a bit disappointed with himself as he watched Director Kim, because Director Kim had reached the Three Blossoms Crown Peak only 3 months after starting martial arts training, while someone like Seo had spent 2 entire lifetimes just training and barely reached the first rate. After Director Kim reached peak level, he got excited and said, "If it's now, I think I could even beat you." Hearing that, Seo smiled, realizing that the man in front of him was not the same big brother he once served in a past life. This Director Kim was mentally much younger than Seo. In terms of how long Seo had lived, he was now old enough to be Director Kim's grandfather. So Seo decided that he shouldn't stay with him in this life. He gave Director Kim martial arts cultivation scrolls and the exhausting record of transcending, a book Kim had created in his previous life. He told Director Kim that from today onwards, he would be going his own way. Hearing that, Director Kim was shocked and asked Seo, "What do you mean by that? Did I make a mistake? Is that why you're leaving? What's the reason?" When Director Kim asked about the reason, Seo remembered what had happened in his first regression. Director Kim had become the Martial Alliance leader but fell into despair after losing to the cultivators.